Hi, my name is Matthew Yakov, and today we're going to talk about Versa Concerto orchestration platform. So this is the view that any new user or new tenant will see on their screen when they log into the Concerto system. Concerto allows you to configure remote access, such as Secure Service Edge, and also allows you to configure SD-WAN. So it's a single unified platform for both SASE and SD-WAN. The very first thing that system will propose you to do is to create an integration with the authentication provider of your choice. It can be LDAP. For example, in the LDAP, we can go and configure Active Directory or type, or maybe it's going to be Open LDAP, whether it's going to be with the SSL or without SSL. You can add your certificates and others. If you want, of course, you can select other type of authentication such as SAML, and in this case it can be Okta, Ping ID, Office 365, Azure, and others which you would need to configure. And of course it can be integrated Versa directory, meaning that it's going to be a local authentication database which is created on the Versa cloud. If we will choose, for example, LDAP and integration with Active Directory, so first we'll need to provide the domain name. It will ask for the port which we want to use for connection to that domain name of the server. We might want to enable SSL or not enable, bind DN, call versa.com, bind password, let's give some passwords, some base DN, domain name versa.com, and domain base versa. Okay. So next it will ask us how to call different object class, group name, and group members which we want to add, we want to use in combination with the LDAP. So let's give it just group members, objects, and Matthew as the username. And of course, how do we call this connector for authentication? Maybe we want to call it LDAP1 or somehow else, because you might have multiple connectors, such as connectors to the LDP, connectors to the SAML and others, and you can use them, for example, for different users, different types of authentication, or with the failover from one to another. So after we created the authentication, the next thing, system will offer us to create the very first security rule. The very first security rule can be based on the applications, it can be based on the users for which we want to allow or deny access somewhere, it can be based on the geographical location, it can be based on the source destination port, source destination zone, certain service, or we can customize when this rule should be active. Maybe it should be active only during the work hours, and that's it. And of course, last is what is going to be the rule for the traffic for the applications, users, and everything else that we selected before. You can either allow it by default, you can deny that all, or you can apply certain security profiles. In the security profiles, we have a choice of malware protection, we have the URL filtering, we have IPS/IDS, we have the IP filtering capabilities, file filtering, and DNS filtration capabilities all in one place. Of course, you can choose which of the profiles or predefined profiles you want to use, or you can create your own profiles later on. In each of them, we have predefined categories. For example, in the malware protection, you can specify to scan all email traffic or all web traffic, or maybe all traffic completely needs to be scanned. And we can enable or disable. In the URL filtering, we have a lot of predefined profiles, and some of these profiles, of course, can be modified later if you would want to do this. So the same is going to be for the IPS/IDS, so I think the main concept is understandable. Anyway, at the end, system will ask us what is the name of this rule, whether it's a default rule or some other, and we'll click OK. So now we finished the initial configuration wizard, and we have a default rule which is saying that all the traffic which is going through the system from the clients should be protected, and should be protected from the malware protection, file filtering, URL filtering, and so on and so forth. If we want to add more specific rules, we can always do this. Let's say that we want to create a rule for the box application, and for the box application, security enforcement is all the box should be rejected, and we say box reject. and we want to put it as the very first rule to be checked before the rule that we created as the default. So, or maybe you want to add some additional rules which will be created based on the applications, where you can select from the almost 3,800 applications that we support, or maybe certain application category. Maybe you want to say that so software updates or maybe voice over IP traffic, we don't want to do any kind of verification, and for this traffic we just want to allow it silently, and that's it. So this is going to be a voice allow. Once again, add it as the very first rule in the system. So now we have rules which will be checked from the top till to down, meaning that first the system will check for the voice. If it's a voice traffic, it's going to be just silently allowed. If it's going to be anything box related, it's going to be silently dropped. If it's anything else, it will be protected with these mechanisms in the system. So those are the basic rules which are created for the Internet Protection, or SWG. You can have your own rules for the connectivity to the private network of the customer. So first of all, you can establish side-to-side tunnel, and for this we also have a configuration wizard. In this side-to-side tunnel, you can choose whether you want to use IPsec or GRE. From which of the gateways which are available to you, you want to establish this tunnel. Right now on this demo system, I have only one Versa Cloud gateway available for this tenant, but in the real life, depending on the license that your users will purchase, you can select or have up to 100 different gateways, and you just want to select from which of them you want to establish this secure tunnel. So let's say it's going to be from this one. We're saying to which IP address it's going to be connecting, so I'm just using a dummy to show you the interface. You will select what type of the authenticate of IPsec transform, what type of the authentication, whether it's a certificate authentication or pre-shared key authentication, and of course you'll be able to add the basic IP addresses which needs to be pointing to that tunnel. So for example, we know that in your network you have 10.0.0.0/16, and that's your internal network, which should be available through that protocol. Of course, instead of this, you can run eBGP to receive and advertise routes from the Versa Cloud Gateway and back. And of course, you can select into which of the custom RFs it's going to be working. So after this all is going to be done, the next thing, system will offer you to also create the rules similarly to how we have for the SWG, but in this case they are going to be applicable exclusively to the users which are using the private connection to their systems. There are a lot of different settings in the system, such as profiles for the clients, where you can specify which routes are going to be advertised to the user, or which applications should be going through the secure tunnels and which shouldn't go there. You can specify TLS decryption, where you can define which rules or which applications should be decrypted. For example, you can say you want to decrypt all the traffic except medical traffic and banking transactions from your users, and it can be created in this menu. So, and lastly, there are different settings which we created through the wizard, but which are going to be available in here. For example, as you remember, we created LDAP profile. That's where this profile is located, and that's where it can be modified later. Similarly, any certificates which were uploaded previously by users or by you for SSL decryption, or maybe for the authentication with LDAP, are going to be the certificate section. Side-to-side tunnels are going to be in the side-to-side, and of course integration with the mobile device management is going to be at the bottom with the in the system, which will allow you to integrate with the Microsoft Intune, for example.